the new Kid Rock song? It
Yeah.
goes off on Snowflake.
Unfortunately, I heard that. Remember you played that last time for me, and it was like,
it's a bit.
and it's like, it sounds like he doesn't even have an original idea. It sounds like Bob with the Bob but with new like white trash words.
Right.
I don't know.
And
How else to describe it?
people were getting a hold of Weird Al at Yankovic and saying, "Hey, we love that new Kid Rock parody you did." And he goes, "I regret those 407 years."
Weird Al is a badass. I love him.
Okay, another week be without another school shooting.
Right.
And we got Sid and Doc with us.
Say hi.
Doc for the first time on the podcast.
Say hi.
Hello.
What's going on?
Hello. Welcome to Reality
So
Redemption.
we've said this before on the podcast, and this is kind of what started Snow and I's social justice thing. Is after Parkland, we wrote an article for the local paper, it was in response to someone else wrote this pro-gun thing, like, you're not gonna take our guns. I'm gonna tell you the Second Amendment stands for this. I'm gonna tell you. I wish I could go back and find that article.
Right.
But we wrote a rebuttal to it, and it wasn't anti-gun.
No, nowhere in it were we saying we don't want people to have guns.
Right, but we were kind of like, hey, can we just put the gun rhetoric aside for a minute and talk about these shootings? And we caught so much flack for
Hellfire.
that. Really? Yeah.
Oh,
I was getting people threatening to show up at my former employer, because on my Facebook profile it had worked at. Mm-hmm. They wanted to call that place and be like, yeah, go down to there and why don't you talk to him personally and tell him how you feel about your guns. And I'm like, whoa.
They wanted you to get canceled. Honestly, no, they were the one. Remember that one lady was calling for you to get fired.
Yeah, so the people who are against cancel culture are trying to cancel you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
over
they were.
Something that
or
had no reason to be upset about.
It was kind of a veiled threat.
It was crazy. Like Facebook had to turn off the comments because there were
the local
Kingman Daily Miner had to
turn
turn the comments off.
Out the comments.
Because of the threats, and probably they were sick of too many comments too. I don't know.
Yeah, the locals are pretty harsh around.
There was like over 500 comments on it.
And that's the thing, and I was walking around Walmart the other day and just all the Second Amendment t-shirts, and I don't know, it was just ridiculous how much I don't want you to call it gun culture, it's gun psych.
Yeah, it's almost like it's an idol. Like they can't function unless they have something to idolize, and it sucks because most of them are gun-toting Christians, and they're supposed to be idolizing Jesus, and they're idolizing their weapons and their Second Amendment and their leaders.
And it's like, have your guns. I'm gonna be exercising my Second Amendment, right?
Like,
Finally, I mean, after all these years, I'm like, now I kind of feel like I have to just in case, I mean, I'm not gonna go crazy. Like, I still want to have other things in my life than just my guns.
Right.
Than just guns.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of things that I enjoy.
Right.
Yeah, guns are fine, but it's
they're fun to shoot.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay,
I've shot them.
In this case, the latest one was in Oxford, Michigan. Ethan Crumbly goes to school with a gun in his backpack, and this kid was clearly disturbed. While the gun was in his backpack, he was drawing a picture of another kid lying in a pool of blood, and another note saying, "Please help me," or something along those lines.
Trying to get ammo, too. He was trying to get a hold of ammo. Trying to buy ammo, because that's why the mom sent the text like, "LOL, I'm not mad at you. You need to learn how to not get caught."
Yeah, and
so she knew he was buying.
Well,
and she texted him too. She put, "Ethan, don't do it." So she knew. That tells me that she knew about the plan of him planning on shooting kids.
She didn't call the school and warn them.
Well, the school found the notes. This was that morning. The school found the notes on his desk, called the parents in, to say, hey, we should talk to your kid. Allowed the kid to stay in school, did not search his backpack or his locker. The gun was in the backpack. The kid goes out from the meeting, goes back to the classroom, asks excuse, comes out of the bathroom, and what did he kill 5 students?
Yeah, I think wasn't he knocking on things saying, it's okay for you to
yeah,
come out, it's the sheriff's.
Yeah, there was a TikTok video and it came up. Some kid posted, they were all huddled down in their classroom and he's knocking, he goes, sheriffs, it's safe to come out. And the kid's like,
they didn't believe him,
we don't feel comfortable with that right now. And he goes, it's okay, it's safe, bro, or something. When he said bro, they're like, he just said bro. And they opened the windows and they jumped out to go to the building across where the sheriffs were. So he could have had that whole classroom, had they opened the door.
Yeah,
and
that's scary.
And the dad had just bought the gun on Black Friday a few days beforehand.
And the kid went with him to buy the gun. The kid was there too.
Right, yeah. But the problem being is the parents already knew the kid was disturbed.
Yeah.
So why are you bringing him to buy a gun? And the mom texted him, it's okay, we're not mad at you, when she first heard the school was on lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
So she knew.
Yeah.
That's why they got locked up.
And then for the first time, I think this is going to be the first time that they're going to charge the parents for involuntary manslaughter for their role that they played in this.
Right.
They should be charged with terrorism too.
I
agree.
And they ran, and they were fugitives for like a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like
how they thought they'd get away. I honestly thought it was going to end in like suicide or suicide by cop with people like that. Right. I'm like, they're going to go out in a blaze of glory.
The difference is if the child was black, he would have been dead.
Right. Well, there's that too.
Child. And I hate to bring race into the situation, but how many unarmed black children has died at the hands of an officer?
Well, that's like the Kyle Rittenhouse thing.
Yeah.
If that was a person of color, then
they'd be locked away, throw away the key.
So these kind of crappy parents, James and Jennifer Crumbley.
Crummy parents.
Crummy parents. Dude, and this goes back to when the kid was like 9 years old, and they would go out partying to the point that the neighbors were calling Child Protective Services.
Yeah, Child Protective Services.
On the parents.
They were involved numerous times. I did read on that.
I'm going to sound like a real asshole for saying this, but I'm going to say it. And they're trying to overturn Roe versus Wade right now. These are two people, in my opinion, who never wanted this child. If they truly loved their child, there is no way in hell they would raise him like this. There is no way. I don't believe that they love their kid.
Right, and if my kid was, making threats or drawing threats on paper at the desk, I wouldn't say, hey, go back to class. I would take that kid home and I'd be like, okay, we need to get you some help.
Inpatient or something like psych. I can't understand.
I mean, we've already had that warning. Remember that Jeremy video?
Yeah.
That was based off of a true story. And that kid was all drawn, fucked up drawing.
Kids what to look for.
Yeah.
Children. Why should they have to look for that?
So the failure. Well, it's not only the failure of the parents; it's failure of the school system.
Well, that's what I was going to add.
They had a search warrant to search his backpack, and they didn't.
How I want to know after all the school shootings that we've had, how is it not mandatory that all schools, and this sucks that kids have to go to school like this, but how did they not all have metal detectors by now?
They used to. They did in the beginning. They had metal detectors and they had to have clear backpacks after Columbine. But they only did that for a couple years. And then they reverted back because I remember when I was in school, they had metal detectors and we had to have clear backpacks to go to school.
And did you go to school here locally?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yep. Even here?
Mm-hmm. For a year they did that and then they fell off of it. They made it part of the dress code and then it fell off. Yeah, so even the high school here, Kingman High School had to do it too. That was after Columbine and then after that stuff was gone.
Yeah, and Columbine was forever. Columbine was over 20 years ago.
And the thing that I've noticed with a lot of these kids that are disturbed, that have had these issues, CPS has almost always been involved in their life. always been involved in their life. You know what I mean?
It's it's a pattern.
It's a pattern. Yeah, these kids have problems. CPS gets involved, and the parents are like, "Oh, well, it's just a troubled child, and we're going to close the case without helping."
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, can I speak on it?
Yeah. Feel free to do this.
Okay, I'm Doc. I've never spoke about this, whether it be personally or publicly, but I've been on both sides of the system, of the DCS system. Am I talking loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So I grew up in another state, right off the Pacific, and my whole life I was taken from my parents and thrown in the system, where, you know, I was moved from group home to group home and just abused mentally, physically, emotionally, and it doesn't just stay in your childhood, it goes in through with your adulthood. In fact, in some cases it triggers many things like mental disorders, like antisocial personality disorder, or a child can grow up with conduct disorder, that which leads to antisocial personality disorder. But and then I've been on the side where, I had my son taken from me, in the past year and a half, and it's crazy how the system works. We reached out so much to so many different organizations in our local area, and we couldn't get the help that we were looking for because my child has high needs. And so we reached out to DCS, and we asked I talked all the way up to the highest people in the office, looking for help, begging for help, because I didn't want to be a failure to myself, to my child, or to my family. I wanted to make a difference in my child's life. I wanted to break the cycle. My parents abandoned me. I'm not going to abandon my kids. I got 5 beautiful kids right now, and I love them all to death. But, the way the system works, in my personal experience, is not okay. They're taking children from loving homes where people are doing everything they can, and you're putting them in somewhere where you're taking them off everything that was working. We went all the way to Phoenix multiple times to go.
So Bubba was diagnosed with conduct disorder. That's basically probably what these other kids had. That are
What exactly is it?
A child psychopath, basically. It's child psychopathy. Yes, conduct disorder. They do everything that a adult psychopath would do.
No empathy, no remorse, no feeling.
Like hurting animals.
All the whole 9 yards. Killing animals. They sometimes will rape their siblings. There's not children who go out in school shootings. There's not the system. And it's not just, these kids or us. There's a wide variety of people. I'm on a group that talks about it.
Are they the same as rad kids?
Close.
Okay.
Very close.
Because I've heard that term too.
It's close. It's very close. I think the only difference between rad children is that they grow out of it.
Okay.
Conduct disorder, they become either sociopaths or psychopaths.
Okay, is it because the basics of Child Protective Services, it's supposed to be exactly what it is. It's supposed to be a good thing.
It's supposed to be. I think that the idea of it was good in the beginning.
Like in this case with this Ethan Crumbly, whatever breakdown CPS had, and not taking those kids away.
Yes.
Now, what makes that different than, it's kind of like the polar opposite of what you went through,
right,
where they took the kid away.
Yeah, they took the kid away.
Completely.
What was the justification
They're just
From their part.
their part. Well,
At the time I was incarcerated and I was looking at a short amount of time, but I wasn't able to be on the streets and fight for my case. I was going to be incarcerated, so I was set off. There was where they claimed negligence from that point.
because he was.
And then my wife we had not adopted him. My wife had not adopted him just yet, so she didn't have technically any
Not
parental
legal
rights.
right.
And
Wait,
birth mom
okay.
was not involved. I
Yeah.
begged her to fight for him so that we could try and continue doing. We're good parents, you know, and
Uh-huh.
the fact that children, like the Crumleys, he fell through. He didn't get help he needed because CPS was negligent at that point.
Yeah.
Leaving them with negligent parents, but we were made to look like negligent parents in the court system when we were not. We went above and beyond for our child. He was inpatient. I stopped working to take care of him, you know, and
Now, is this is like a state-run agency, right?
Hmm.
So each state determines the rules.
every
of
state
how,
has issues. Yeah, every state, they get to where it becomes, they make money off these kids.
Do you guys have custody of him now?
No.
His rights are gone.
What-
And the
so-
foster parent who was adopting him or has adopted him, I'm not sure, promised he would do open adoption, but lied.
How old is the child?
Elijah's
He's 9 now.
Oh, wow.
How old was he when you realized he was having problems?
He was 7 years old. So he went into the system because of an altercation he had with his ex-girlfriend, and they took him based on that, nothing else. Based on that. He fought for him for 19 months, but in the process, the first foster home he was in, he was raped and he was beaten.
God.
And that was the change. And then he ended up in the foster parent that has him now, which is a good home. The man is good to him. He takes really good care of him. But when we were being reunited with Bubba the first time, they didn't tell us he had these behaviors. And in return, he had molested one of our daughters. And they tried to pin that on us, that it was our negligence because he slept in the same bed with the other kids. I don't see any wrong with the children having sleepovers together, you know?
And
Right.
his behaviors actually had led us to go install, and for the purposes of DCS's sake, you know, for proof that nothing was going on, we actually installed cameras on the inside and outside of our house. And we had kept close, I had all notifications come straight to my cell phone. All of them. Every notification of somebody playing in a room, any motion
He had
activation.
an alarm on his door
Yeah,
for at night.
we never locked his door. He was able to open his door and close it and lock it. He had his own room with a bathroom, so we just put that extra precaution on there because I'm a hard sleeper sometimes, and she
He
has problems
had-
waking me up.
He did some really nasty sexual things to his little sister 3 times while we slept. So he had to have the alarm. It was prescribed by a psych doctor.
Jeez.
So the fact that the system, so down to the system, the CPS, DCS system, whatever they call it DHS in different states. What I've done is research on it, and they will leave children with crappy parents because they're getting screwed up. These children end up in juvenile hall, which lands them in the system anyways. Then they end up in prison. Or vice versa, they take a fine child, a child that's okay, from good parents and mess them up. So then they end up in the system again. They're getting money for it. The state's getting money. The state's getting money for juvenile hall. The state's getting money for the prison system because they're ultimately landing in there. But there's no mental health programs to help these kids in place. Or the mental health programs are contracted with the child services and they're not giving them what they need.
Yeah.
So they're getting money off the lives of these children into adulthood, and it's sad.
There's no real mental
Okay,
health.
Where does the funding come from for these
The
places?
funding comes from the state.
Okay, so state funds these.
Mm-hmm.
Who oversees?
Well, in our state,
the-
Governor Ducey oversees it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And they pay people for doing fostering
they do.
too.
Yeah, but not
so,
much. They don't get.
Okay.
I don't think foster care gets paid much.
Okay.
Not enough to, I think, suffice. But it ranges from different states. Our state, I don't think they get very much.
We have another guest
no.
joining us. So, yes.
What should we call you? Guest.
You can call me by name.
Okay.
All right.
So, Serena, can you tell us about
Well,
a little bit?
she's just joining in the
Well-
conversation, so we should catch her up. We're talking about CPS, who funds it, what it's supposed to do, and how certain things fall through the cracks, like this school shooting the other day with this Ethan Crumbly. CPS was called to these parents' house. Nothing was done about it. And Doc and Sid were sharing stories of how their son was taken away from them under circumstances where they probably shouldn't have been. What kind of discrepancies from state to state on it?
So the ultimate purpose is to keep children with their families. That is the number one goal. So when we have an investigation, that's the entire goal. So we're there to give them services. How do we build upon making them a stronger family? What can we do? We have case aides that go in and get them daycare. They get them all those kind of services just to have them be stronger and just to be more, to have more support at home. And then when it rises to the level of the safety or that the parent has committed a crime, left a mark, whatever that looks like, then that would proceed court proceedings, and then so that would start the process of removal. And then you have to go to court 6 months to a year, kind of like the process. I think I'm getting off track, but but back to your original questions, the whole purpose of CPS is to reunify, and keep children with their families, because we have seen over the years that everybody puts them in foster care and then they get to be teenagers and nobody wants teenagers, so then we have overpopulated foster care system.
Are there rehabilitation programs within CPS to be better parents? I don't know, parenting school or whatever.
Right. There are. I'm just trying to evaluate whether. So it has a lot to do with the parents' buy-in too, how much they want to participate. And the other thing is I don't know if they meet people where they're at, right? So they're kind of just doing these cookie cutter things like, oh, you're going to do this parenting class, you're going to do that and that and that. Instead of meeting with you one-on-one and you're like, this is what you need help with and this is how we're going to get you there.
Right, because every situation is different. On that, did you have court proceedings leading up?
Yeah, we did both times. So when he was removed the first time, of course, I was not with him. We had a child in common, but I was not with him, and there was a domestic abuse between him and his ex, and he was removed. That's normal. It's normal. So there was court proceedings. There was he did go through parenting classes, drug tests, and so forth. Like they actually surrounded the first time they surrounded our family, it was great because they gave me daycare for the girls, so that he could do his classes and so forth. It worked great. Like Bubba was reunited with us in 19 months, and 17 months. But the second time, regardless that I had video proof, knowing that Bubba had these behaviors of lying, regardless of not understanding that the bruise on his shoulder was from, it was probably about this size on his shoulder. In the video, you could see him fall to the ground and hit his shoulder. And I immediately picked him up and was like, Bubba, we can't be throwing a fit like that. You're hurting yourself. Regardless of that, because he was going to be in prison they didn't know how much time he hadn't had his sentencing yet. And his behaviors were dangerous towards the other children. They severed the rights, regardless of asking for co-guardianship. That he would live with the foster parent that we loved, you know.
So, but in your case, you're kind of treated like it was black and white. Right?
It was black and white the second time. Regardless, I tried really hard to talk to the certain social workers. They had made up their mind. There was no, like, I was in the CFTs that they had up until he was severed. And there was no, they stopped doing certain services that I had fought hard to advocate for him with Mojave Mental Health to get referrals for. They cut those out because it was too hard for the foster parent, not thinking of the child.
Yeah, and we had services that were like
wrap around, like he had
like EDMR, CBT. We were doing everything. We were doing the right medications. We went down to Phoenix to go get everything. You know, I mean, like we actually took our son to inpatient twice to make sure that, you know, everything.
Yeah, because
we had a doctor recommendation, and then apparently the doctor sent another one the next day, and it said something different, so they couldn't go off that.
Yeah. So we had an issue the second time, and they took, because he had been removed twice. That was another issue with them. So. Right. I agreed that he didn't need to be in our home because of the behaviors in our other children, but I don't agree with severance. I don't. Because I feel like with his mother abandoning him and myself being his only mom that he's ever had,
in the past 5
taking
years.
that away from him completely is traumatizing.
More abandonment.
You know what I mean? And the only pillar he had in his life, like he already felt abandoned, you know, and I think that sometimes, like, I feel like the system is a good thing in some aspects, but I feel like there's some flaws in it that, you know, parents like us.
Well, because,
you know,
and Serena, they you can't really treat it like a case-by-case basis.
Right, yeah, like she said, it's...
You know, it's kind of, this is the proceedings, this is what we have to do.
And so when I say I'm answering, but they should treat it that way because there are different severities. There are safety plans they can put in place. There are other plans they can have. They don't have to sever, but they could be permanently, or they can be in a permanent guardianship. And so every year, then whoever has that guardianship, they have to go back and report to the judge, and then they can have that. You know, I think they are starting. It's a long road, but that is one of their many flaws, was just to remove, and it was this those court judgments that they were making, like, oh, you're doing drugs, so you're a bad person. You're in domestic violence, so you can't raise children. And now they're coming around to the fact that, okay, you do drugs, but what does that do to affect your parenting? How are you raising your children? Are you in another room? Are you keeping your child safe? Do you have a 2-year-old? Do you have an 8-year-old? Do you have a 12-year-old where they can monitor their own things? Are they picking up the paraphernalia? Those kinds of things. So they've come a long ways in the fact that they're saying, we know you do drugs, now what? Let's make it safe so that you can keep your children at home.
Right.
So but they're not all the way there yet.
There's and there's flaws. So like where I've seen improvement, because I have friends who have children that are in the DCS system. One girl that I'm involved with, she got in trouble for having marijuana in her system, and that was like a week and a half before it was legalized. So they come around to, how do you function, you know, if you're smoking pot, or, you know, do you have to have it? She stopped, but they were working on it, and it was severance initially, and now it's reunification because they've worked around it. She has a really good caseworker, but I think it really depends on who you get as a caseworker. You
wow.
know? It does depend. It really does.
Yeah.
And Doc, didn't you have a hard time, because I'm acting like I don't know, but I know that you had a hard time with your case while you were incarcerated.
Yeah, you're in jail.
Which blew my mind because when you were incarcerated, this was during COVID, and they were kind of just letting a lot of people out to be out of the,
Yeah, he
out of the jail
literally
system.
was in there for a violation on probation for the original charge was for a Facebook post. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, I
swear
shared
to Jesus.
a child molester or sex offender's address on Facebook publicly, and apparently there's laws against that.
Wow.
He did a year for that.
A year
Yeah.
for making a post like that?
Yeah.
Yep, because his
Holy
information and they
Just a heads up, listeners, don't do it.
be careful what you post on social media. It can come back and haunt you.
Yes.
I did not know that was a crime.
Yep.
Right, and your appeals just kept
Because that's
getting
public
pushed
knowledge.
back and
Yep.
pushed back.
Anyway,
Well, and that's what I tried to fight off is that it was public knowledge, and they were like the victim, so to speak. Whether anyway, the person was trying to play the role of the scared victim. Oh, I'm scared. I've had people come to my house and
No,
this
it's
and
Okay,
that.
so this was somebody you knew personally.
This is my
It was somebody we knew personally and still know, but
we had a lot of drama going on with this person.
Okay.
we don't allow this person in our life anymore. But it's not like you can just take things away. You know what I mean? You might, well, unless you're DCS, you can take everything away. But it's just it's crazy how rigged the system really is. You see corrupt people walking. Like, I'm gonna get a little personal, and I'm not political in any way, but you have, like we mentioned earlier, if you have an African American, or you have an East Indian, or you have any other race other than a white person walk in carrying a rifle anywhere down any street,
They're gonna die.
you're going to get shot. But because it was a white person,
Self-defense.
let's just write it off. Oh, he's innocent.
But and also like
What kind of sense does that make, America?
The numbers in our DCS system, there's more African American children in the system of Arizona than I think any other race next to Native American.
Okay, and here's another thing. How well funded is the CPS?
They're not. They don't get hardly any funding.
This gets to my point.
Yeah,
Okay.
they don't have nothing. Hardly.
Given everything that's going on in the Supreme Court right now, and they're trying to not necessarily overturn Roe versus
Change
Wade,
it, though.
but they're gonna they're gonna decide to leave it up to the states on what to do.
They're going to manipulate it.
Yeah, so you'll see conservative states
We will be
go to try to ban abortions as early as possible, as soon as the heartbeat is detected. Anyway, the point being is the pro-life crowd, okay, is only pro-life until the kid's born. Now the kid's born, he's in the system, say it's unwanted pregnancy, they give it up, kid goes into the foster system,
an overloaded foster system.
an overloaded, underfunded foster system.
Right.
And then, they want to cut funding for that. Where's the pro-life
There's
there?
not.
And that's exactly my point too. Like the issue of abortion. We need to quit demonizing abortion. If someone is telling you from the get-go that they do not want to go through with their pregnancy, I don't understand why it's anybody else's business. They're saying they don't want to have the kid, regardless of what the
and then they end up not
issue
taking
is.
care of the children, and the child ends up. You have CPS workers at your door, like.
And CPS
taking your
doesn't
child.
need any more kids. I mean, I don't understand why. If we would get religion out of a lot more things, we'd be a whole lot better off. It's
I feel like CPS, DCS, DHS workers are overloaded as it is. How are they
Right.
supposed to feel you know, even as a mental health worker, I know what burnout feels. How are, like,
That's what I was gonna
And-
say.
yeah,
It's
burnout is
more,
bad.
they take it out on the workers, and
Yes.
the mental health is not there. I mean, the payments range between, it depends if you're having what level of child. You know, and I used to do adoption specialist, but it's like, it could be $800 now, I don't know, a month. I think it used to be $500 a month, but then if you had the kids with the special needs, there was tiers, and it went from like $1,300 to on up, like
Right.
depending on, because that was your full-time job. You weren't allowed to put them in the daycare services
Right.
as a foster parent. You have to keep them at home. There's a lot of rules, a lot of therapy. There's probably therapy at least probably daily. I don't know if it's more than once a daily. And so there are a lot of extra tasks you have to do as that special foster parent. So the funding is more about the mental health, the lack of mental health, and then they just drain it on the workers.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and then in areas like, we constantly bag on this area, but as far as mental health
Ugh.
in this area,
It's
they
horrendous.
don't pay, so you can't retain good workers. So you get people that aren't
Don't care.
fully qualified.
Or you tried to send out, in my case, I stopped working for mental health here because they didn't have resources for the clients that I had. And I would try to outsource, and they're like, oh no, we're not paying for that. So they're just going to have to be stuck with what they're having. And it's the same with kids. It's the same thing with the children, is the leadership of the mental health, the people on the big top, they've made it into a corporation instead of about the client. So they don't send out referrals. That's the thing we fought with for Bubba.
Their idea of fixing is sticking you on medication. And
Yes.
Right, I was going to say
Right.
that
Yeah.
They
because
stick these
my
kids on medication.
my kids see therapists, which is there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Actually,
Nope.
there's nothing wrong with therapy if you have a good therapist.
Right.
But their solution was always, well, let's increase the medication. Let's increase the medication, and I would go in there fighting. I'm like, no,
No.
look, I'm not seeing any difference in here. As a matter of fact, I was in a situation where I had the kids for a little while, and I was just like, I'm gonna roll back.
We did the same
medication.
thing. We did the same thing.
And there was no difference. That either way, good or bad, there was just no difference. It was just even kill. And I'm like, well, this medication really isn't doing anything. And I get medication, for some people it works for them, but I also don't believe in getting people on this medication for a lifetime.
Well, they had Bubba on. He was on amphetamines, and knowing that his father is an ex-meth addict, they had his son on amphetamines, and they were treating his ADHD, not his behaviors. And when we took him to Phoenix, they say, why is he on this? He needs a mood stabilizer. So they put him on Risperidone and completely changed him. It worked with his ADHD. It helped with his moods. But as soon as he was taken back, he went
They
right
took
back
all the
on the
medications
amphetamines.
and slapped him right back on.
Because it
the
makes
bed.
him tired. That's why.
Okay. Who made the decisions on the medication?
TCS
mental health.
and mental health. I had no choice in it. I could
you
sit.
have no choice.
I had no choice.
As
to
a
say,
guardian, you had no choice.
I had nothing.
on
I
the
sat
medications.
in the CFTs. I told them what I experienced and what he should be continuing, but I ultimately did not have the decision. Even though I knew, as his mother, I knew what was good for him.
Right.
You know.
And because the guardian then is CPS.
Yeah.
They are the guardian.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
The foster parent is not the guardian. It's CPS. They make the decisions.
And so they follow the advice of whatever
Whatever the mental health and the doctor that was there, I don't know if he's there anymore. He is a med
Jesus
pusher. So
And it's amazing the relationship that they have with that DCS and mental health have in common,
And-
because I think at some point it becomes a conflict of interest when the same people know other people. And I get that this is a small town, but I mean, when you start going out off of work with these same people, and I just feel like there's too much
the
collaboration
example,
going on.
the therapist that was our son's therapist.
Well, we're talking though. This isn't a problem of this area.
It's a problem,
This
period.
is all over rural America. This
Right.
is what goes
Right.
on.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm just
our
speaking from personal
therapist.
experience.
Yeah, our therapist was close friends with the DCS worker that removed our son.
Yeah, and don't get me
lied,
wrong.
They lied in CFTs. They lied even though we had the paperwork to prove it to DCS. I really felt like the entire time we were, and even though we had my kid representative person saying, no, that's not what's happened. I've been to every meeting. I've been to every appointment. It didn't matter. It's really hard to talk about.
Like the
sometimes.
cards are just like stacked against you.
It didn't matter what I did. What he couldn't do much because he was in jail, but it didn't matter. Me calling, saying, please, can you change this? That I tried to get kinship and they opened up a case on me, a bogus case. Yeah, so I couldn't get kinship. Like it just
Corrupt.
And I don't believe it's that way for everybody. I believe that there's some caseworkers that are just burnt out and they don't care. Like I really feel that way.
Well, I mean, that's got to be, as you can attest, it's probably got to be a really tough job.
It is.
Seeing
Yeah.
what you probably have to see and deal with.
That's why you went into hospice, right?
Well, I actually loved what I was doing. I liked the. I wanted to stay and keep up. Like I know what you're talking about. Like when
Right.
you call people snatchers and the baby snatchers, and I was for the reunification. I wanted, and that is what I really upheld when I was working that. And I did investigations, I did ongoing, I did in-home, and I did adoptions. So I was able to move around. But me leaving was more about the more you did, the more they stuck on top of you, like you said. And there was it's not about pay, but it is, but it was just like, that's it. You're making this and that's all you're going to make. And here's more cases and here's more cases. And why didn't you get these closed? Like overloaded. So that's why I ultimately left, because I just could never get ahead. And I didn't feel like I was making a difference anymore. Like you said, I felt jaded.
Yeah, you get burnt out, and that's the same with mental health. You get
Yeah.
they overload you, and you get burnt. I got tired of it. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, because
and that's what happens.
You don't go into a profession like that not wanting to help people. That's
They
why you go
definitely need built-in mental health for DCS caseworkers.
That's actually one of the new NASW social work code of ethics is we have to have self-care. And if we don't do self-care, we're actually not able to technically, competently service as social workers, because
That's good.
people can point that out to us now.
Like, it's just crazy hearing all this, because it's like, it's almost the same way they treat teachers too. I mean,
Yes.
it's like,
It's a system.
are children really important? Like, when you hear stuff like this, you're like, well, there's no money in that. They want to just keep piling more stuff on you. And who's suffering most of the time? The children. Like,
It's to
They-
money off of their
yeah.
lives.
And it's like, they don't give a fuck about kids.
It's money.
They
It's the
it's
entire
insane.
system. It's the entire system.
I mean,
not just-
it's our entire
yeah.
the way our government's set up.
I don't
Honestly,
know that the CPS is about money, because they don't actually
The
get money for
government
that.
is,
But
yeah.
I know what you're saying.
no,
It's-
yeah, I'm
we're-
just talking
Yeah,
about like the
CPS is
system.
reactive and not proactive,
Right.
and that's what the problem is.
But
And
it's
that's
like-
where it comes
right,
from.
right.
It's like
Exactly.
why
reactive,
be
not
so into the whole pro-life thing and trying to do all this stuff when y'all know you don't give a fuck about kids. Like
Right.
they know that they don't. The policymakers don't give a shit about the kids.
A day after the school shooting, the Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky posted a photo of his family, and they're all sitting around the Christmas tree holding guns.
Oh,
Like,
God, I saw that.
Yeah, isn't
please
he
stand us
from
in the ammo.
Kentucky?
Yeah.
He's one from Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing too. So they were talking about the leading causes of death in children, and car accidents are number 1. Number 2 is shooting. Number 2 is firearm deaths for kids. Number 2. Number 3 is pediatric cancer.
So guns above.
Those are our top 3 for children. It's like, and they try to convince us that they give a shit about kids.
Oh yeah, but
I
you
don't.
don't want your kids masked at school. You know,
I know.
you don't want to be immunized against COVID. You know, you don't. God forbid we teach real American history and the dark parts of American history. You know, and you. Again, another stupid critical race theory, stupid term. Something that's not taught in schools, it's taught in college. That's a college course. Mm-hmm. But then you have all these outraged parents who go to these school meetings and yelling at the school board, threatening the school board because of what they're not teaching in school. But these same parents don't give a shit about school shootings.
I know
it's really okay. So teachers are there for education. Parents are there to teach their kids manners, ethics, and right and wrong. I'm sorry, teachers should not be behaviorally dealing with your child. They're there to educate your child. And these parents are like, oh, you need to do this, this, and this with my child. Where are they going to have the time?
Did they get rid of guidance counselors too? Like they used to have those?
They have, I think they contract now with mental health, and mental health counselors come in and check on the troubled kids. Not on the rest of the kids that don't show behaviors. Because, there's kids that are quiet that end up with a gun and shoot up the school.
Right.
They need it for, mental health isn't just for kids with ADHD or something that's outwardly, doing things. There's kids that are quiet and do things in quiet. Because they're depressed, or they're being abused at home, or they're being bullied.
Well, a lot of parents just treat the school system as a babysitter during the day.
That's not their job.
I was talking to somebody, and she was a school nurse out in Havasu, and she quit because she got tired of, especially during this time, people sending their kids to school sick. Daily occurrence. You don't know. I mean, your kid's got the sniffles. Hey, go get him tested for COVID.
Right, it takes like a few seconds. Go down the road. Yeah. They're all over the place. My son, my older son, the nurse called and said, yeah, unfortunately, we had a parent send their child knowing they had a positive COVID test.
Jesus.
So your son has to stay home for 10 days or get tested. I went and got him vaccinated, but needless to say... Parents are like, oh, I have to work. And then when they ask for children to wear masks, oh, no, I'm going to keep my kid home.
Okay.
It makes
point,
zero sense.
Why isn't that?
Like, how did they get to that conclusion?
Why isn't that kid taken away? Because not only are you endangering your own kid because you don't believe in this.
Why are those kids taken away?
To school.
Sick.
Self-determination.
Yeah, that's neglect. Take care of your child. Yes. Like,
why are they taking them?
Self-determination.
Self-determination, yeah.
Insane.
It is. It's insane.
I think you do have a good point with that, is that they're hiding, like they're embarrassed to talk about mental health, like it's shunned or something. Or
it still is, yes.
Yeah, and so if you do have a child with mental health issues and you say, God forbid they have Tourette's or whatever they have, whatever their issue is, or schizophrenia or whatever, people like... And they just think the worst, like you are going to be the person that's going to have the issues or the outbreaks or whatever.
I think I had one of those dads. I had one of those dads, what are you crying about? Shut up.
And we need to bring that to the table and say, no, it's okay if you have a mental health issue, because guess what? We probably all do. But
exactly.
Everybody.
We're all fucked up.
And one point or another.
And denying that we don't have mental health issues, that makes us even more fucked up later.
We need to start looking at those people who are... We need to just flip the tables on them. If you think there's nothing wrong...
I know for a fact, in this state at least, and I'm sure in many states with mental health, the priority is not mental health. Their priority is their gun rights and their anti-abortion laws. Their priority is not the children that need the help right now. So mental health is underfunded incredibly, especially in Mojave County.
Oh yeah,
especially in Mojave County.
This area
it's horrible.
This area is awful for mental health. I mean, I knew people who they were like. I had a friend who was telling me about all these people who were getting like schizophrenia diagnoses. And I'm like, there's no way that there's that many schizophrenic people here.
They're misdiagnosed. Yeah, they're misdiagnosed.
And it's like, they're not really. So then one friend actually went and had gotten help down outside of Phoenix and got a completely different
personality
diagnosis.
disorder, because when they ask you questions, do you hear voices in your heads? Of course, somebody with a personality disorder, they have their personality telling them to do things, and they have to stop that thinking, right? That's a person. It's not different voices that you're hearing in your head. It's your own brain telling you to do
Right.
something, and say, yeah, the voice in my brain tells me this, and they're like, oh, schizophrenia. Instead of exploring that they have a personality disorder of some type. Like, and it's the same with children. Bubba would all say all the time, yeah, I have a voice in my head that tells me to do this. They tried to say he was schizophrenic, and I said his voice in his head is his brain, because he's got conduct disorder. It's a personality disorder. He is trying to talk himself out of doing bad things. That is what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they just, schizophrenia.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a counselor, and it was one that, okay, so I don't know I can never remember if it's psychologist or psychotherapist or whatnot, but I went to one who was a meds prescribing doctor.
Oh, that's a
Okay.
BHP.
Psychiatrist.
Yeah, psychiatrist,
Okay.
yeah.
So I go to him and he's like, yeah, he diagnoses me as having depression and anxiety.
Mhm.
So he puts me on depression meds, and I go and I had appointments to come back and see him, and I go, I really don't like this medication. I don't like the way it makes me feel. It makes me feel worse, and blah blah blah. And so he's like, all right, well, we have to wean you off. And so when he weaned me off and we were done at the end of the weaning, he's like, all right. I go, yeah, I think I'd rather just do like the counseling portion. And he's like, you're going to need to go somewhere else then. Like, he goes, if you don't want to be on medication, I cannot help you. You're going to need to go to just a therapist then. I have no help for you here. And I was like,
Well, and that's because he's not a therapist. So he was actually right to say, because he would be practicing outside of his scope of practice. Basically, so there are like 5 approaches to depression, and medication is just one. There's counseling, there's self-talk, there's exercise, and your diet. And nobody focuses on the other stuff, and they just want, like you said, they'll prescribe it.
right.
But it does need to be a well-rounded approach.
And I think that they could do a better job if they're going to be a doctor at like explaining it to you better. Because it was almost like, I can't help you. You know, you don't want to be on medication. You need to leave.
Right.
Well, I had like the opposite experience where I was talking to somebody and she was be like, okay, well, how does this make you feel? And I think I'm like this because of this. And you know, at the end of a couple sessions, she was just like, well, I think you have a pretty good grip on things. I'm like, no, I need to figure out why I got from A to, you know, I mean, yeah, I have a good grip on what's wrong with me, but why am I like this? You know?
Right.
You wanted solution-focused therapy.
Right. I guess that was kind of like the Tony Soprano thing with Dr. Ralphie. You know what I mean? She would get him to talk about shit. You would just fucking admit it.
You figure it out yourself. Yeah,
I figured it out
that's the whole
myself.
thing, is you make your client work for you. You don't work for them. So you talk to them, you ask them open-ended questions, and they literally answer their own questions every time. Every time.
And that is helpful, actually. Like I've gone to therapists like that where I'm like, because they shouldn't be telling you what to do. They should get you to realize what you should do.
But this was kind of like, well, 3 sessions and you're all done. Okay, well, you have a pretty good grip on
Oh,
things.
no,
So I'm
there
like,
should
no, I think this should be a continuing
There should have been
thing.
more sessions
Yeah,
than
that's-
just 3.
But then again, that could be more of the system being
Broken, yeah. They just want to filter out more people, and it's overloaded too. Like, I had 220 clients working at where I was at, and I had high needs clients. I had DDD clients and regular clients that were addicts and stuff. So
And like, how many did you have to see a day?
when we were doing COVID calls, I was calling 30 people a day.
30 a day.
30 a day.
That's a lot.
How often did they have appointments? Like, was it
Some of
weekly?
them were weekly, some of them were monthly.
How did
Some
you
of
chart
them
all that?
It was hard. I could hardly. Yeah, it was hard. I was so backlogged in charting that it was ridiculous. I was like, I can't do this. And then they would, I would ask for certain resources for certain clients. They wouldn't allow us to go out and see high needs clients, regardless if I had masks and the precautions. I got during COVID, I got burnt out. I was like, I can't help my clients the way it is. Some of them killed themselves. And that was hard. Suicide. Yeah, some of us lost clients. And I didn't want to have anything to do with that anymore. I lost one client to COVID, and I was like, I'm done. I can't do it. I can't emotionally do this. You know, you ask me to help people. You ask me to support them, and then you don't give me the resources to do so.
You know, Snow, keep on doing this podcast. We talk about these subjects and stuff like that. There's no solutions to any of these problems, though.
The solution lies within the laws and the government that's above us, and they don't do it.
Universal health care, including mental health.
Yes.
Like, there's solutions.
I have very good insurance through UPS, and we were unable to find help for my son for 5th grade all the way to, even now. So we did finally, we got him diagnosed in about 6th grade, but that was, so the school system is supposed to do that for you too. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to identify a problem, and then, is it an IEP, is it a BIP, or behavioral solutions, anyways. And so if they need something, the school is supposed to be there between K and 12. They weren't. I went to them many times. So finally, I just had good insurance, so I said, I'm taking them to Vegas. Got our stuff done. But I always wonder, what about those parents that don't have
There's so many
those resources to just go to Vegas?
Yeah, we didn't have that either. We were on state insurance. Mm-hmm. We had to go to Phoenix. And Vegas is only an hour and a half away. That would have been so much easier. But we had to go to Phoenix.
And so it was like literally searching for those therapists, searching for that psychiatrist, searching for all of those resources that literally took me from 5th grade to 8th grade. It was
and then
exhausting.
And then you were talking earlier about how they tried to shove off the problem. They're like, yeah, but he's a smart kid. Like,
so they wouldn't give him an IEP, even though I demanded it in writing, because the principal said, well, I have to get back with you on that. I don't think he fits in the he doesn't fit the, whatever you call that, for needing an IEP. Mm-hmm. And so I said, no. I said, he goes, well, we're not a public school. I said, you're a charter school, you take public dollars. You still have to offer the same services.
Public school.
I'm like, and I am requesting it, and now I will put it in writing, and so you have to respond in 14 days. And he's like, well, I'll have to get back with the special ed teacher. Special ed teacher calls me. Well, he doesn't have any learning objectives, and he doesn't have any problems, and he gets straight A's, and it's not a problem. And I said, so being called out 2, 3, 4 times a week, disrupting his education, that is interrupting his education. Mm-hmm. But he never did get his IEP. They never came through with that. And they just kept saying, nope, he doesn't need it, even though IEPs have a behavioral component to it.
Yep.
But again, it goes back to probably like a funding issue. It's probably not.
It's
probably not the individual.
They blamed it on that. They said, well, we don't have to go by the same rules as a public school. And I said, oh, yes, you do.
Yeah, they do.
You take public dollars. Mm-hmm. So now, this year, they actually have a counselor there at the school. And,
But aren't charter schools supposed to be so much better?
I know.
That's what they try to sell us here.
Some of the people around here act like their kids go to a private school. They're like, they're in the academy. I'm like, you guys actually suck away more dollars.
Academy? Do you know how many kids have killed themselves from that place because of bullying and stuff? They don't do any better than a public school.
Yeah, they're able to get
smaller class sizes. Mm-hmm.
They have a way of being able to get more tax dollars too, to suck away more tax dollars to the.
It's more to do with the
than public schools, though.
Well, so no, the public schools are based on like the neighborhoods, or now there's open borders or whatever, not borders, open
jurisdiction.
Yeah, you can go to whatever school you want. But if the charter school is showing that they have X, Y, and Z students that are meeting the test scores,
they get more money.
They get more money for
That's
that.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they'll take more money.
That's how they do. Yeah.
From the public schools, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Without the resources for the child.
Yeah.
And they're for profit, so at the end of the day, it doesn't go back into the schools. Mm-hmm. It goes to the shareholders.
Yeah.
So. And I am guilty. I sent my kids to charter schools, but I just couldn't deal with those class sizes in the public school.
Yeah.
Oh.
They are, well, they're.
And we struggle
They're
with
strong.
our daughter struggles in large class sizes. She struggles. She does.
But yeah, get real about it. I mean, who's really the pro-life crowd, though? Really, who
Pro-choice
really
people, the pro-choice people, because like really, like naturally, I wouldn't get an abortion, right? Like I would never do that. But I'm a good mother. I love having kids. I love taking care of babies. But who am I to force some other woman who doesn't want to have a baby?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and
Like,
that's. I think it was on one of those stupid Facebook arguments that I said that I was pro-choice, and like, oh, you're a baby killer. No, I didn't say I was pro-abortion.
Right. Right. No.
Well, and the fact is that being pro-choice, pro-life, you're still pro-choice if you are pro-life, because guess what? Those people were before RB Wade, the people that had money were still getting abortions.
Yeah.
So it's okay for people that have money are getting abortions. So you're really not pro-life
Yeah.
because you're okay with rich people being able to have abortions and not poor people that are underserved that have to go to a different county. That is not the definition of pro-life.
No, it's not. And that's the thing is they don't care. Like they don't care at all.
No,
But
they don't care.
it's our body, our choice if we want a vaccine or not. That's pro-choice. That is choosing to do what you want to do with your body. But they don't believe in abortions.
But I mean, this all wraps it back up to how we started this with the just a couple days after Parkland, the guy writing this pro-gun article with no mention. Yeah, that's kind of tragic what happened there. Maybe we should look into this. Maybe we should look into that. He was just like, nope. And this he wasn't even born. He was an Italian immigrant.
Right.
But.
So I would ask him, do you want you to have the blood of those children's hands or on your hands? You know what I mean? Like
They don't care.
They don't care unless it's their child. Then they're like, oh my God. We got this crazy person.
Or even in this case, in this
Crumleys.
the Crumbleys,
Yeah.
they don't even give a shit about their kid.
They didn't, and the fact that the system failed them in ways that the system failed us almost identically.
They failed this Ethan Crumbley.
They
Did you hear the
failed
news that
him.
came out today? They lawyered up for themselves, and they let his kid get public defended. They didn't lawyer up their own kid.
Because they already knew that he has a life sentence.
Well, yeah, and the thing is like, I worry for our child because we tried to get him every help that we needed to get him so that he wouldn't end up like Ethan. So he wouldn't end up like him. And I worry now because he's still in Mojave County getting the same exact crap care that he was getting before. And I'm going to say crap care because it is. The child needs psychotherapy. He has conduct disorder. He doesn't need just counseling or a counselor talking to him every week and meds. I worry about him being like that or being a serial rapist or a serial killer. And it's out of our hands. Like, there's nothing I can do.
Or even it goes back to the Rittenhouse kid.
Rittenhouse, yeah, that child, that...
Like I almost feel bad for these kids. I feel bad for Ethan. I almost feel bad for Kyle Rittenhouse
it's
that
the
his
parents'
parents
fault.
didn't step in and go,
It
hey,
is.
hey, idiot, you're 17. What the fuck are you doing there?
Yes. I would be kicking my kid's butt. I would literally be like, what the heck are you doing buying a AR-15 and going somewhere you do not belong? That's dangerous. It's dangerous for you. It's dangerous for others. No, like that's bad parenting, period. It's the parents' fault.
Regardless whether she drove him there or not.
Regardless, yeah, if they weren't certain if she did, but I'm sure she did. But regardless, like you are being a crappy parent and you shouldn't have had a child in the first place.
Or, this goes all the way back to Sandy Hook. And
That's another example of crappy parenting.
yeah, she left her guns unlocked.
And knowing he had conduct disorder.
And
Yes.
and if he didn't kill her, she should have been charged. for
Right.
that.
Right. He had conduct disorder. He actively was inpatient on and off talking about killing people. As she left her guns open, that's negligence.
And I remember during that, and this was my first move here. I'd only been here for 6 months, and I used to always travel from New England down to New Jersey, and I drove through that part of Connecticut, right near Sandy Hook. It was just right off the exit. So when that happened, it kind of was, I was like, wow, I sort of know that town. And I was working for a place, and we had the news on, and that was the one where Obama came out, and he was making that speech, and kind of teared up, like saying, hey, we got to do something about this. And my customer, this little lady, goes, that effing N-word isn't going to tell me what I can do with my guns.
Nobody said anything
I'm
about
like,
their guns.
what?
They talked about helping kids and getting them better help.
Well, remember how much crap everyone gave him too? They're like, if those were even real tears. When the president is the president of the United States, they give him the pictures of the stuff.
Yeah.
So
he sees
that's
it.
why he was crying, because he saw all the little children who were torn to pieces.
As a troubled child, you, growing up in the foster care homes, did you display violent behavior and they didn't do anything for you?
I think my behavior, I think that question is a little difficult to answer, because I know from my personal experience, even though my parents had left me at 10 and a half months old, I grew up angry and frustrated and hateful towards the whole world, and I took it out on everybody in the world. So for me, I didn't really know anything but anger and hatred for any and everything. The first time I ever cried, the first time I ever was happy was the day my son was born. That was the first time.
Yeah.
But being in, just growing up in that place, it's nothing nice, you know what I mean? And especially it doesn't help when you're sent to different homes because you can't work out in one foster home, or you find out that these people that want to be parents are just doing it for the money, and you're just locked in their basement until somebody comes around important looking for you, or the social worker comes to the property. Oh, let's get them out of the basement. Oh, let's go give them a shower. Yeah, they're coming over today.
Did you ever form an attachment to any of the foster homes you were in, and they got taken out of them?
There was only 2 people in the entire system that I ever took a liking to, or even in a place. The one place that I do remember that I liked, it was called Families First. It was in Sacramento, California. And then the 2 people that I've come across that I've really liked, they were genuine. Like when you come across somebody and they're not putting on this facade like, oh, look at me, I do this, but behind closed doors I'm like this. These people were genuine. What you see is what you get, and that's how I try to be. And they're, I don't know, should I name their names or not, but
they were gonna adopt him.
One person. Well, no, that was the family.
The family that was gonna adopt him.
These were people before them. Like Zach was before them. Betty was before anybody. But the foster parents. It was funny because the foster parents were. He was my teacher in 3 different group homes. Okay, check this out, right? Not only was he my teacher for 3 different group homes, his wife was my doctor for the past 6 years of that time. So I was well taken care of, well looked after by those people.
The only ones that you really had that were family.
Yeah, once.
The system deemed him his behaviors too much for them
Well,
to adopt him because he had had an outburst.
my behavior was a result of that, and I take full responsibility because I didn't have to come to school that day, but it was my last day at that school. My transcripts had been sent over, but the bottom line was I was a danger.
A risk.
Because not only did I pick up one of those round tables that you can sit like 8 people at, I picked one of those tables up and threw it at the teacher, and it was a group home school, so they could restrain you. It was a level 14 group home and things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, they that was the last time I seen him. They came to the hospital where I was getting my psych eval for 3 fucking months. And when I got there, they looked, and the system, it's funny because for so many years I had been looking for him, and I just wonder what happened to him. And come to find out, I come across them on Facebook a little over a year ago.
I found them for you.
Yeah, my wife had found them over a year ago, and we talked, and they told me word for word, and I have the texts to prove, or the messages to prove it. DCS told us that you were a lost cause and we should just leave you alone at the age of 12.
Oh.
The only picture we have of him as a child was with their family. Only picture.
Yep. Only childhood picture I ever got was from this would have been adopted family.
I worry about other children, and so I know the system's good for a lot of reasons. Like we've had good experiences with it, but we've also had very terrible experiences with it.
Yeah.
The system and bad parents result in what happened in schools. Or children murdering their foster parents, because.
And how old are you? If you don't mind, 36.
I'm 36.
Okay. So you're-
It took him till you were like, what, 32 to start doing like actually better mentally? Because you actually started
31.
31. He started to get help for it because he didn't know what he had. And then when they finally told him, he's like, oh, that makes sense. But, oh, this is why I've been struggling all these years. Nobody could diagnose me.
Well, I mean, that's the other problem with all the systems breaking down. It's hard to break the cycle of it. I know me personally, I talked a little bit about my upbringing. As a parent, I just went with the, let me just do the opposite of what I know, and I think I'll turn out all right. And it seems to work.
There you go.
That's what he does. It's the opposite. He tries really hard to do the opposite of what happened to him. Like he was abused horribly, and he's like, I don't want to spank my kids. I don't want to do it. I don't want to. I don't like to hit. I want to put them in the corner and take their stuff away. That's how it is.
Well, I go to the extreme though with that. Like if my kids do something like they'll do something and I'll just be like, oh, Dad, don't yell at us. I'm like, I'm not yelling. You want to know yelling?
Yeah, I mess up as a mom sometimes to yell at my kids, but I think that's normal, and I do apologize to them about it. But like he tries really hard to not, especially not having parents and growing up and being a father. So, yeah.
Yeah, I apologize even if I go, oh.
Yeah,
I immediately apologize.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I don't think that was recognized. What was brought up is that he has a violent past when we lost Elisha or Bubba. When we lost him. Oh well, he has a violent past. I'm like, I know a lot of people have, they get into a fight and they've got domestic abuse or all this stuff. That doesn't mean he's a violent parent. He didn't. It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Anybody have any final thoughts? Anybody? Snow?
No,
heavy?
I'm not. I know it's like so heavy. Like
I know this is kind of like
sad story.
Like we're right before Christmas here, and usually Christmas you think about kids. At least me, because I'm not that religious, so it's always about making the kids happy and stuff like that. And
yeah, I did one of those Christmas angels this year. Yeah, because I was like, feel bad for kids that don't have like as much stuff.
Yeah, how come the Democrats here in town, I didn't see anything with the toy drive this year?
I don't
They let them
know.
out of the loop or something like that.
I don't.
You should-
I haven't. They didn't even help with Juneteenth this year, so I don't even know.
Well,
I'm not on Facebook anymore.
but I haven't seen it. Well, usually what I would do is to teach my kids a life lesson because they usually get pretty good presents. I take them, to Walmart or the dollar store, and I'm like, okay, here you got this much. Pick out this, and we're donating these toys to this.
Yeah, our
cause.
kids just picked out all their toys out of their toy box and stuff they didn't want, and we donated it.
I told them if you want Santa
Yeah, I
to
used
come,
to
you
do
gotta
that
get
every
rid
year.
of half your stuff.
Yeah, and they did. They picked through
They
it
did.
and they donated it.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Plus, I also had a dad that if you didn't clean up when he said, like, he's
Your
like,
toys
yeah,
go
all your
away."
toys are going down to the salvage
Yeah.
place to give our toys away.
Did it ever happen?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
The one time he got
My
real
mom's done it
pissed,
to us, yeah.
and he did. He was like, I'm not. My dad has OCD about like cleanliness OCD. Like his house is immaculate. It looks like a model home. So
I
yeah,
could not live in that.
me neither. Look at my house. I can't live in that.
Did
I
you-
like organized clutter.
Did you ever confront him and go, "This is why I was in therapy, Dad"?
Sometimes I say it to both of them. I feel that that's like my right as their child, and they're my parents. They need to know that.
I wonder how he got away with not doing your baseboards when he was here, though.
He didn't. He
I
doesn't.
broke down and did her baseboards.
I know he probably didn't look at them.
I'm not judging. I'm just saying. I can't believe her dad hasn't done this already.
I know. I don't
I was having
like
fun with
filth. I don't like filth, but like it's weird. Like dust, I don't really mind. It's one of those things.
We
that
live in the
doesn't really
desert. How
bother
can we
me.
keep up on it?
I know.
I would
But she has the.
But I don't like
the
filth.
Dyson, and I
Like-
was like, this is amazing. It was done in like 5 seconds. It was
I
awesome.
know. Like, I mean, I'm already like right when we get done with this, I'm like, I do need to take my trash out because it's
Oh
like
yeah, I was
it's
gonna do that.
kind of full. But I was
But
waiting for the trash to get
Not
taken
dressed
this
appropriately
morning.
when I
The
noticed
can
that there
was already full.
I was not dressed appropriately when I noticed the trash was full. So I couldn't take it out.
All right, we're starting to go off the rails here.
I know, right?
All right, so it's probably time to wrap it up. But thanks, Sid.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doc.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us. We've been wanting to share our story.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
been the
Yeah.
perfect time.
Thank you, Serena.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
Hey,
you.
and when I might post this later, share it. Okay,
Oh, I'm
so
going
it gets
to.
out there.
I'm going to.
You know, even though we did hit the top 40 in the comedy category on Apple Podcasts last week,
Yes.
I thought it was
Yeah.
but this one definitely is gonna hit
You
comedy.
said it was top 26.
You think this one will be caught?
No, definitely not.
I was gonna
Because we're
say,
not
I'm
always
like, this
funny.
one's not a funny
No.
one.
This is
Oh.
a serious one, yeah.
It's
No.
not funny.
Yeah, not only top 40, we were number 37.
Yeah. You told me that last time, right?
Yeah,
Are we still holding strong at 37?
I didn't get the notification this week.
Maybe we're slipping.
Whatever, you still call it.
I'm just kidding. We will take our 37.
Yeah.
I want that job, sending out notifications.
I know, right? They're like happy notifications.
Yeah, whatever.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Hey, we're great discussion. We're trying to help.
Right.
If that doesn't help, I
I
don't
know.
know.
We like to have our episodes like this, though. This always helps.
Yeah.
Even though, yeah, it's not like a
It
super
could
silly
reach,
one.
reach somebody who
it
goes
helps.
through the same thing
Yeah.
and touch them and help them in their process.
Right, because
That's
I
the
think everybody
point
can
of it.
relate to these kind of things.
Right.
And especially if we do have listeners with a different, say, political opinion, that maybe they will realize that when we say we're pro-life, it doesn't mean we're pro-abortion. And we want kids to be happy, we want to look after kids and all the other stuff, especially this time of year, you know.
So everybody go get an angel.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Final thought.
Okay.
I'll get a tree angel.
All right, we'll wrap this up, and we will see you maybe next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Tuesdays is our thing now during this time of year.
Oh, you skipped Thursdays?
Therapy Tuesdays with Snow and MJ,
Right,
the
yeah.
Reality Redemption Podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and now we are available on Facebook Podcasts.
Plug it.
Yay. And the Reality Redemption YouTube channel.
All right.
Okay, we'll see you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.